patients, there's so much, information out there. The problem is you don't know where you're getting it from. But if you dig a little bit and you know what the questions that you would like to ask, you'll get the answers.
Hey guys, check out the 2023 Street Cop Conference, April 23rd through the 28th, Gaylord Convention Center. It's going to be the event of the year. Keynote speakers include Rob O'Neill, the guy who killed Bin Laden, Kyle Carpenter, the youngest living Medal of Honor recipient, Navy SEAL Jason Redmond, Fox News host Tommy Lahren, Marine Corps Special Forces and Leadership Coach Cody Alford, Sheriff Wayne Ivey, Sheriff David Clark, and Sheriff Mark Lamb. It's going to be one hell of an event. And on top of that, we have all of our instructors and additional instructors from other companies going to be at the event, giving you everything they know for you to have a successful career and get the results you want to get in the field as a police officer. On top of attending the event, you'll get face-to-face time with every instructor attending the event, and all the keynote speakers will spend time with you. We got special events all week, giveaways, nightlife. It's going to be really, really worth your time, energy, and effort. I promise you, you will not regret it for a second. To register for the conference, check out streetcop.com, click conference, and everything you need will be there on the homepage. If you are looking for a room, just click book a room. The block has been sold out at the Gaylord Opryland Convention Center, but there are many hotels nearby within a walking distance of the event. You don't want to miss out on this opportunity. We will see you there.
111, 110.
You training to be a street cop?
Hey guys, welcome to this episode of the Street Cop Training Podcast. I'm your host, founder, and CEO of Street Cop Training. My name is Dennis Benino. And we have with us today a guy I met at an event not too long ago, and I invited him onto the podcast. I think he's going to bring a lot of value. We're going to talk today about physical and mental wear and tear and care. But appreciate you coming down to the in-person studio.
Thanks for having
here
me.
at Street Cop Training. Yeah, Dr. Carmen Romano. So, Doc, tell us about who you are, what you do, and some of your history and how you correlate to Street Cop Training shit.
Long history of being an athlete, through high school, college, and a little bit minors. Father was a professional boxing trainer, so I didn't have much of a choice there. Accumulated some injury there, and as I made my way through school, I realized that if I wasn't going to continue on being an athlete, I wanted to treat them. So by trade, I am a sports chiro, but my years of experience now has I've dove into more research into the mental and physical chemistry of healing and recovery, because it seemed to be a common denominator over the years where it wasn't just a breakdown of a shoulder or a breakdown of a back. It was like breakdown of mental and physical. So I'd say over the last few years, most of our research and treatment is geared not just at looking at a shoulder or low back, but making sure you have the chemistry to heal as well.
And you now run a facility where you guys are treating significant amount of law enforcement and first responders, right? Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Tell us about that a little bit. Walk us through the process of what that looks like.
So you can kind of bunch up some of the cultures, and law enforcement in particular, the grind. I don't think the mental grind is supposed to be talked about. That's what you got, and that's why you got on the job, and that's what you're supposed to deal with and manage. But I think the mental grind can create some wear and tear chemically, which then in your body can create some wear and tear physically. So the minute something goes physically, whether it be a knee or a low back or a shoulder, whether it be from working out or on the job, that's the first thing they attack, right? Would be the low back or the shoulder or the knee. And we try to dive in a little bit further, almost like that concierge dive in to make sure that you have the right tools to even heal.
So I show up for an appointment there. Walk me through what it looks like. What's the process?
Depending on why you're there, we try to go over some goals. If you're there just more for a wellness visit, I call it more of a well practice, and that's what we're trying to develop multiple versions of, because there is a way to have a well practice and have a patient engaged in the practice. Typically, an internal medicine practice you might visit 4 times a year, like once for a physical and 3 times for a sick visit. The goal is to try to get patients to look at the right practice as more of a well visit, staying well, prevention.
What does that look like, a well visit? Let's start with that one.
Kind of a deep dive into maybe some of the goals you might have, past injuries, depending on the age bracket, male or female. You might do some blood work, look for some key markers in chemistry for mental health and, again, physical chemistry. Men in particular, you see, even the studies that are shown now, the average 22-year-old, I think it's 30 to 40% less testosterone than a 22-year-old 30 years ago.
Because they're not physical.
They haven't really came to a conclusion as to why, but it's there. And, you know, some of the things that help us not only heal, but mental drive, you know, energy, just overall drive has to do with our chemistry. So a lot of the self-help books and self-help podcasts that are out there that are great, including yours, sometimes can't quite get someone to where they want to be because they just don't have the stuff. They don't have that you know, their chemistry is dropping, whether it be amino acid, testosterone. I mean, there's, you know, loads of things that can cause your mental and physical well-being to drop. And there's also loads of things that you could do through nutrition and supplementation that can help bring you back to those levels to help you at least mentally start to even want to get there.
Yeah, it's interesting as you're talking, I'm hearing diet and exercise, right? It's probably the most key components of how you're going to live a life and what your life's going to look like. Oddly enough, this year it's been a little bit of a difficult year for me because I have caught the stomach bug 3 times in 6 weeks. I rolled a side-by-side onto my arm in a small crash. That took me out of the gym for about 4.5 weeks. So literally this morning I was like, yo, like what the fuck, right? You know what I mean? Like this has been a crazy year where I haven't been able to do, and on top of like not being able to do those physical things in the gym, and I started getting back into them, then I caught the stomach bug. Then once that cleared up, same thing happened again. But then the stomach bug was also messing up my diet tremendously.
Right.
So it was just very interesting the first 2 months of 2023, albeit a great year thus far. But physically and diet-wise, I have been completely off my mark, and I'm telling you, no bullshit. I'm not one of those people who's like, oh, January 1, I'm going to start. I probably started December 28, and I was like, yeah, you know, tomorrow I'm going to fucking start because we had the holidays and shit. And I wasn't getting, actually, I wasn't super crazy during the holidays. And so I was like, yep, twice a day, diet's going to be strict, blah, blah, blah. So I was in like day 3, and I was pretty strict as it was when I had when I rolled the side-by-side over. And I was like, man, I'm on fucking roll. By the time the conference rolls around, I'm going to be like shredded fucking wheat, right? And then I get the arm injury. I'm like, I swear to God, as soon as that thing rolled onto my arm, and I thought my arm was broken, I was like, I fucking broke my arm.
Right.
Like, could you fucking imagine? Like, here I am, literally clear as day. I'm on the path, maybe even a week at that point. And I'm like, fuck, dude, now I got to deal with a broken arm. This is going to fuck. I'm like, in my head, I'm like, literally in the woods, getting ready to flip this thing back over.
Thinking about the gym.
Thinking about, man, I'm doing a lot of fucking legs and fucking cardio and a lot of core. There's gonna be nothing with this arm. As a matter of fact, it hurts so bad. I'm not trying to sound like a bitch, right? So I didn't break it, but it was bad. I have pictures of it.
Well, soft tissue can be worse sometimes.
Well, I'll show you pictures when we're done, and you can take a look at what you think happened there. They were actually really concerned at the emergency room. Doctor's like, look, I don't know how this thing's not broken. And I was like, that's because I'm fucking shred fucking muscular, man. Even the pain radiating from that thing, I wasn't able to work out at all. It was fucking me up.
Yeah.
I couldn't sleep for like a week. It was brutal.
So if we talk about a first visit, and you were in my office for a first visit, and you said, look, I don't know what happened. You know, say you were in for your arm. But the history was I was nailed with the stomach bug 3 times. I'm not quite sure, you know, what I would dive into your immune system, you know, vitamin IV therapy, like really try to get something's not right immune-wise for you to be, you know, coming down with the same thing, if not a different stomach bug 3 times. Because the deep dive on you not only would be obviously seeing what the arm may need, but where the visits may lead to is figuring out, okay, what's going on with your immune system? Like, you know, why are you catching these bugs, and what could you be missing, and what could we replace to get you a little bit healthier and ready for the rest of the year, and you know, and kicking ass.
You know what's crazy? I haven't been this sick my entire life. And out of nowhere, it just started to happen. But my kids brought it home from school. That's the first one.
Mask came off this year?
Mask came off. I've had COVID 3 times. Second one whooped my booty, but it didn't kill me. Last one wasn't terrible.
Right.
So I think I have a pretty good immune system. We just did a thing where we're getting a new insurance policy here, and they're like, oh, when's your last doctor's visit? I'm like, I don't even know.
Right.
Who's your primary care physician? I'm like, I don't know. Like, you want to talk
urgent care if I'm dying, right?
And I haven't been there. Like, I haven't gone there. I mean, when's your last checkup? I'm like, the last time you guys sold me an insurance policy.
Right.
Like, that was it. That's when I get my checkups. The blood work comes back. It's all fucking comes back really good. I just have high cholesterol that I typically see. I just did the Captain Bushio test. You ever hear those?
Yeah.
So I just did that one over the summer. The guy called me. He's like, your testosterone's great. And, of course, he's breaking my balls about my cholesterol level. And I said, he goes, what's your diet like? At that time, I was like, I'm foregoing carbs completely. I'm on like a high fatty diet. And he's like, well, what kind of fats you eat? He's like, you eating a lot of eggs? I'm like, yeah. I eat like half dozen eggs a day.
And red meat.
Red meat, like fatty red meats, not lean red meats. Yeah, like a carnivore diet. And he's like, you got to really start looking at this and changing up your diet a little bit. And I'm like, but I feel great, dude. He's like, well, introduce more salmon. But I get higher quality meats and fishes shipped to my house through a company that if you looked into it, you'd figure it out. Because I don't want to be, like, I'm eating wild-caught salmon now.
Yeah.
Right? I'm trying to do like 2 fillets of those.
You're trying to watch your mercury and
all that shit.
Yeah.
So I'm putting thought
I agree
into
with that diet, though. I mean, I tell you, I've seen frozen shoulder go away within 3 weeks just from the carnivore diet.
I feel great.
Like inflammation that's caused by carbs, and
carbs fuck me up.
My descent is Italian,
Yeah.
So it's very hard for me to stay away from, and it's not like I tend to unless I feel like I need to. But it's something pretty special when you're able to take someone with an injury or someone that sugars cause anxiety. So if I'm dealing with a patient's history that seems to have multiple sites of inflammation and my knees are bothering me, my shoulders bother me, and I kind of dive in a little bit, tweaking a couple of things with nutrition, whether it be carnivore diet or like intermittent fasting and a carnivore type diet.
That's what I'm doing.
A little bit of high cholesterol. I'm not sure the jury's out on that of whether or not it's bad.
And it's not like a lot. It's like literally over the little line right there.
I still don't know if they know exactly where arteriosclerosis comes from.
Right.
Like, I mean, we know what it is, and we know that things can kind of bind up within your arteries and cause blockages and high blood pressure and all that. But there's also something to be said about the cadence of testosterone and cholesterol, because they are almost one and the same if you look up how they're made. I would have to agree with your diet based on how you're doing, how you're feeling, and what your quality of life is. So it's also another thing I think we miss is I don't think everyone needs to be put in a box.
Right.
Where, if you're really paying attention to a patient, how well they're doing, whether it be with their workout, with their mental health, with the gym, with their relationships, you don't need to put them in your box now to see a result. It's kind of tweaking their lifestyle towards their lifestyle and around what they do, rather than, you need to meal prep and you got to eat just protein and just brown rice, and you're not going to get results with that. It's first of all, it's not rational to stay on something like that. You get better results at getting to know the patient and figuring out what it is that might kind of get them cooking.
I'm going to change courses for a second, but you said relationships. That's something you ask people when they come in for evaluation?
That plus I think historically trust is built when you see a patient over time. So they tend to, especially if you're kind of regular, and I like to consider myself somewhat regular, where I'm open and I talk and they talk, and your patients kind of give up what's happening. Sometimes I could tell. I'd look at a patient, like, what's going on with you today? You're off.
Yeah.
And they say, it's funny you ask. And then they might give up a little information, and I don't really ask for more than what they're looking to give up, but it definitely comes up. And then again, that seems to coincide with what they're feeling. So a relationship, a career, their lack of recovery from the gym, it all kind of starts meshing, and that's where this started years ago. Where I was like, these all kind of match. So it's not just a low back and a shoulder, or it's not just someone that seems like they're a little depressed and fatigued. It's like a little bit of everything. Ooh. And then there's always a couple of common denominators. What's going on with them blood work-wise? Like if you dive in a little bit, you see some of the things that are missing. You start to implement different nutrition and diet plans, and maybe adding some weights to their workout rather than just cycling or running. Like I believe in lifting is key. And you get. I think I've gotten this confident with the way we do things based off of the patient's response, right? I know we're doing the right thing based off of patients saying to me, I tell you what, I feel great. I'm doing great. Something's different. Their career path has changed. Their relationship has changed. Their body has changed. Like, then you're getting results.
Yeah, and you got to have that drive and that commitment and that discipline to say, all right, I'm staring at this road. It's a long one, but I can see over that hill. I can see where it ends. I'm going to start jogging right now. And I don't mean that literally. I mean, you're going to start doing the work and getting there.
Right.
And I got to tell you, before you know it, time goes quick and you're there and you're thankful that you're there. But relationships is interesting because, I, as weird as it sounds, have a lot of theories in life in general, but also relationships. And for some odd reason, I think through my experiences in my life, I am able to give really good advice at 41 on relationships because I'm a very binary, and some people say polarizing person, but binary. I see things for what they are. I can almost look at a relationship and let you know what's going on in that relationship.
Whether they want to hear it or not.
Well, and that's the problem. People don't want to people don't like the truth. And that's a 900-hour conversation.
Yeah.
But
Facts don't have feelings, that type of.
yeah, but the reality is people are not realizing how important relationships are to your mental health. And I'll even start with one of those relationships is your intimate relationship with a partner, whether it's a guy or a girl or same sex, whatever it may be. I really believe that if you're in a bad relationship, it correlates tremendously to the rest of your life and your physical well-being. So when people are so impatient and they want to be with somebody so bad that they allow their desire for companionship to supersede their brains on knowing whether this is right or wrong,
Right.
they don't realize in the long run you're paying some big, so it's short-term pain, long-term results,
Right.
and vice versa. You want short-term results, you're gonna have long-term pain.
Yeah.
So being in these bad relationships, I got to tell you, they will literally ruin your life. People don't understand that, and then they're in it. I watch it, man. I watch it with people, and I just try to think in my head, these are some smart folks in these bad relationships. How are they? What's going on in their brain? What's missing when they have their friends telling them, "We don't think it's a good idea.
Right.
He's not good for you.
Sometimes
She's
they're
not
trying
good
to
for
handle
you."
a short-term need.
That's what I'm saying.
Right.
It's these short-term goals. And it takes a lot of discipline to look at a relationship and say, you know what? This one's not serving me that well. I don't think it's going to be a long-term thing. And employ the discipline of ripping the Band-Aid off early
Right.
to leave yourself at a very minimum available to find the one you're supposed to be with. But how about this? That one you're supposed to be with is not just some romantic idea. There's really a lot of people out there that we're all compatible with. You just got to spend the time going through all of it. But also, you're doing something for yourself, your long-term mental health, your long-term physical health. So it's interesting how you said that it all correlates to how we feel and how we perform as human beings.
Right.
So I'm a high performer, right? It's important for me to be in good relationships.
Or being able to be in a relationship by yourself and not have to
Yes.
have to maybe work on a little bit of what you need to work on to be the best version you can offer someone else. But there's also the flip side, which is I can't seem to find anyone, or I can't seem to find the right person for me. And that conversation comes up a lot of times where it's like, okay, but what are you putting out there? Like, have you bettered yourself? Are you getting smarter? Are you reading? Are you learning? Are you working out? Like, what are you offering? Basically, what are you offering? Is it really all everyone else? Or is it that you're not in the right state to be offering what you should be offering to find the one that you want? Or what do you look, like you just said, what are you looking for? You looking for the immediate need? Or are you looking for that like gym gains? Like if you want gym gains,
Steroids.
or you got to put the time in. Like you're not.
Let's talk about steroids. Let's just flip it up, right? Short-term metrics, long-term pain.
Yep.
You want that quick result? I'm 41. I have friends. I never touched the stuff in my life. I'll take a fucking polygraph right now. I have friends that are in their mid-30s that are like, dude, I got heart problems. I'm getting breast reduction surgeries and the removal. I don't know if
And
they're
mental. It really, really affects mental chemistry, the overuse.
And these guys think these 2 or 3 years of abuse and that I hooked up with 3 9s over the summer because they're just as superficial as I am, which is fine because if you actually understand it, we're all superficial at some level. You just are. We're making assessments when you look at somebody and saying, does this person meet the criteria? It's a superficial thing. So
It's a rank order. You rank order everything.
of course. I mean, I'm superficial. You're superficial. I'm superficial. I look at things and I say to myself, is this something that I'd be proud of to be with? That's how I am. And people say, well, that's kind of shallow to say something like that. I said, well, the problem is if I don't assess who I am and what I need in a relationship as a partner in some kind of intimate relationship, I'm not going to be engaged 100%. When I look at somebody, I say, is this person going to be the person that I could see myself with long term if I'm going to consider this anything more than a hookup? So, but yeah, like it's no difference than that. Man, I look awesome for 2 or 3 summers.
Right.
Then what happens 12, 14? You've traded your whole life in, your physical discomfort for a quick turnaround. It's the same shit. I'll give you something interesting. When you say, what are you working towards? What's your goals? I've often said that if I write a autobiography, it's going to be called Willing. Your boy here is willing to do whatever it takes to achieve the goals that I seek. Mm-hmm. And I don't mean that in a sense of I'm going to be sneaky, conniving, manipulative. I would never do, and that's why I'm here with the trust that I have. You're never going to find a story about me being sneaky, manipulative.
You're willing to do whatever you need to get
Yes,
through.
that's right.
To get there.
So I will put the work in. I will do the uncomfortable shit nonstop. The reason I started working out, no bullshit, when I was 18 is because I wanted to hook up with hotter chicks. And I got to tell you, here's a news flash. It worked. My girlfriend at the time, I mean, I stepped my game up, put like 35 pounds on in a year. And the next girlfriend I had blew her out of the water. And that girl was like all jealous about it. I'm like, yeah, look at this thing. Like, you don't want to do nothing, but I'm not trying to hang out in this area.
Right.
I want to date hot chicks.
Right.
And it worked. So when you talk about who are you trying to attract, well, I'd like a more attractive person. Yeah, I see some of these guys that I know personally who it's amazing how they'll be very, very overweight. And then they have that epiphany and they do the work and they'll drop 150, 200 pounds. And then miraculously, they find somebody. Could you imagine? And then they're in love and happy. And dude, I couldn't be happier for these people.
I know. And their career changes and their
everything
confidence
changes.
There's
Yeah.
so many things that go with it.
And who are we to judge,
get
right?
healthy.
Because you don't know what they're dealing with mentally, right? We can't
Right.
sit here and cast judgment. We do. We don't have a choice. We always do it. And maybe I judge it for some reasons that are personal to me. But, it's interesting if you'd hear why somebody had an appearance like that or felt the way they did or had lack of motivation or they were dealing with stuff. So it's good that you're looking into these things. But, man, showing up and assessing somebody like that with no judgment is great. Now, if you're one of those people who says, well, you see, I've got a pass. I don't have to do those things because I had this happen to me. That's actually not the truth. You can't just make that excuse.
And I got to tell you, it's one
Yeah.
of the things we make sure of. You run out of excuses with me.
Sure, you run out of
Because
excuses all the
we've
time.
all been through a lot.
People do it here. When people first start working here, they'll start saying, yeah, but, and I go, you can't bullshit me.
No.
Let's get down to the core of what you're trying to say here. What is your excuse, and how do you learn to extinguish this?
And do you really
fucking
want
things?
it? Like, how bad do you really want
Yeah,
it?
sure. Just say you don't want it. I've had people say like, okay, I don't want to do that.
Right.
I'm like, okay, then don't
I
say
have more
you want
respect
it.
for that.
And you know what? One of the probably biggest pivotal moments in my life was when I learned how to identify excuses and extinguish them. And you'll hear me in conversations and we have office meetings and I'm like, this is not an excuse, this is an explanation. Because you'll never hear me say, yeah, but I fucking hate those two words. When I hear yeah, but, that makes me insane. I'll acknowledge when I fall off. I'll tell you, like, yeah, I fucked up. What do you want me to do? Like,
Fucked up.
yeah, I ate fucking 2 donuts last night. You know what I'm saying? I was fucking thinking about them. I saw them. I stopped there and ate it. And this morning, I regret the fuck out of it. The good news is, you just start again at any time.
Well, the fact, I think what brings you back on track is the fact you acknowledge you did it. And that's what a lot of people seem to not be able to do, is even say that, I fucked up. If you say that and you remind yourself of where you're at when you do screw up, things change. You can create, as you start to get tempted in that arena, you start to notice it a little bit more. But if you're not even willing to acknowledge you did it, then how are you going to get anywhere better?
And I think that people just need perspective. They got to train their brain, get more mature, educated, intelligent, and then acknowledge some of this stuff. Because I think we're all a product of our social upbringing and environments. And so if you're around excuse makers and bitchers and moaners and complainers, and I got to tell you, speaking to a little bit of earlier our conversation, I cut negative people out of my life so fucking fast. I don't talk to half my family. I'm not kidding you. I know. And I got to tell you,
That's a really good point, though, who you surround yourself with.
Oh, it's a big one.
How to tell your true friends and toxic relationships.
and guess what? When you find those people and you're thankful that you have them and they're not toxic, they're thankful that they have you and you're not toxic.
Yes, that's true.
And it's a wonderful, harmonious place to be. And those people who are toxic kind of look at you like, oh, who did they think they are?
Right.
You can think whatever you want. That's why we're not hanging out with people like you, because you exude toxic traits. It's probably a lot of the reason why people are attracted to our organization.
Right.
We never display that shit.
Right.
You know, because we're not like that. Is there probably a little bit here and there? Sure. As a matter of fact, if you came into this working environment here at Street Cop Training with our 16 full-time employees right now and growing, and you were toxic, you will be so obvious that you won't make it here more than about 2 weeks before everybody in this office has turned their back on you,
Right.
and you're just going to walk the
leave.
fuck out
Right.
anyway.
You're uncomfortable and you leave.
You can't. And we actually are going through a process now for 3 weeks trying to find hires. We just talked about this before we started. And, you know, I said to the girls who I'm hiring, you know, we had the girls in the office, we were talking, I'm like, we need bros. And I don't mean that as far as guy or girl. We need people that, one, the first thing we got to look at is, are they going to fit in this place?
Right.
Personality first for me. When we get on a Zoom call with these people, are they jiving with us? Are we laughing? Are we having a good time?
Right.
We can teach people shit, right? So we're looking for the personality, the trust, that they're not going to come in and disrupt the flow in here with their
kind of vibe
fucking
they're
negative
giving off,
bullshit, right? The vibe. And then the second one is intelligence level, because then we can teach skills. If
Right.
you've got those two things, we're hiring you. But unfortunately, you know, you run a company. It's
not
pain in the
easy.
ass.
That's one of the first questions I ask. You know, again, it's more personality based. Most of the people I, interview have been to school and have learned a trade, we'll call it. But are you willing to learn and are you willing to teach are two important things in practice or in a business like yours. You know, it's if you're willing to learn, that means you're not a know-it-all. And if you're willing to teach, that means you're humble enough to at least give up some of your life lessons and what you've learned along the way.
Yeah. Dude, special people are special people. It takes me a long time to get where we got right now.
Mm-hmm.
And, I pray that it doesn't get disturbed and everybody in here remains happy and expresses their interests that they want to do or any dislikes they have here or any kind of whatever it is. I just want them to be open with me so I can ensure that we don't have an imbalance of chemistry in this place.
Mm-hmm.
We want to keep the vibe the way it is.
Do you see a mental shift in people coming out of COVID? Do you see a mental shift in like either your company or who you're interviewing as far as just kind of anxiety of the way things seem to be right now?
I think that, and I could be wrong about this, but I think bums are bums and winners are winners. Mm-hmm. And I think that unfortunately most people are not the type of people who enjoy work.
Right.
I just believe that. And it's like when cops say, well, these millennials, they don't want to do any work. They don't want to do any work. Well, we've got a lot bigger of an issue than millennials in law enforcement. But I try to remind these guys, like, look, I got on the job almost 22 years ago. There were plenty of lazy fucks then too.
Sure.
People just don't understand that. They think that like because, especially when you're a high achiever and as a law enforcement officer or whatever profession you're in and you're a go-getter, and it's hard to understand and stop for a second and say, why am I so motivated, so energetic, enjoy this so much, love work, and then these other people, I look at them as like they're just bums.
Right, just existing.
They don't want to do nothing.
Right.
They don't. That's where their comfort level is. This morning, Kenny Williams, one of our instructors, said, I said this, he's like, I can't believe you've been sick 3 times, dude. It's crazy. He goes, maybe you're like overworking yourself. I said, can I sleep 7.5 to 8 hours a night? And you know, because you're a hard charger too, that this is my normal. Mm-hmm. As most people look at people like me and say, how do you do? People say to me in class all the time, like, oh, you are human. Oh, you actually, somebody may see you at the dinner, like, oh, you actually stop and eat dinner once in a while? I'm like,
right.
Sometimes, but this is my fucking favorite thing to do.
Right.
If I wake up and have a bummy day, I feel like shit. Like a day that people look forward to, like tomorrow I'm gonna get like a 12-pack of White Claws and like binge watch Netflix. You might as well tell me you're gonna take needles, hold me down, and drive into my fucking eyeballs, because for a guy like me, that is a nightmare. I don't want to relax.
You like to produce.
I feel the best. Mm-hmm. It's not even. I just like to be productive.
Yeah.
Even if I had nothing to do, which is not even close to ever being a real thing in my life ever again, dude, I would fucking clean my garage to do something just to say, oh, wow, look at this thing I achieved today. When I worked as a kid, I was working 2 full-time jobs when I graduated high school, 80 hours a week. No bullshit. On my lunch breaks from one of the pizzerias I was working at, I would clean people's cars for free just to stay busy. I'm like, let me take your car home. That new car you got? Like, yeah. I'm like, let me fucking clean it up before I bring it back. Like, what do I owe you? I'm like, nothing. I just need something to do.
Right.
Can't sit around. I had like a 2-hour break between the morning shift and the lunch shift.
Yeah.
And I remember taking like everybody's cars home that I worked with, like 15 people at the pizzeria. I'm like, yeah. Like, hey, you want to clean my car up today? I'm like, I'll take it home. I'll be back in a couple hours. right? And that's
so
it.
your goal and drive oriented, which again is, I think is in part of your genetics and part of the lecture we'd like to give people as far as who are depressed and feeling like they're not going anywhere. Set some goals, create some goals for yourself, create some meaning. That's meaning for you. Like, hit a goal, do it again. It creates movement. It creates.
You got to get around the right people. I think that's a big one, Doc.
It is.
You know what I'm saying? I can just see the people. If nobody's motivating you, any relationship that I'm engaging in, I'm looking for somebody who's going to be bettering me.
Yes.
And very quickly, if I'm somewhere and somebody's
it's not about transaction. Like, you're not looking to see if they could do something.
No,
for you,
no.
Which I think we are doing a lot now these days. I see
rising
certain
tides raise all
relationships,
ships, right?
More of like a transactional relationship. It's who can do what. A guy could do this one for that. It's like, what's that old saying? It's how you treat someone who could do nothing for you.
Right.
There's something to be said about that. Like, it doesn't always need to be a transaction. It's just what are you giving off? Is what you care about, it seems. It's like, are you a good person? Are you giving off a good vibe? Or are you just this negative, toxic energy?
I have some of my best friends and some of the people that I consider to be some of the best human beings I've ever known in my life who are nothing like me, right? They don't have businesses. They're not an influencer. They're not building anything. They're just regular dudes who literally understand what this is all about and what higher living is about. And you'd be like, that guy's that enlightened? I'm like, yeah. He's that
and he's
enlightened.
happy for you.
And
That's a
happy
good friend.
for me, right? Yeah, and happy for me. And when you're...
Because you worked for it and they saw you work for it. They might be a little envious, but not in a bad way. Envious maybe might spark them to do something.
They even say it. They're like, dude, I feel like I'm fucking like wasting my time.
Right.
And I'm like, bro, like you're good. Like, here's the good news. We're all like 40, right? You got another 50 years.
Right.
So you got a whole...
Do something.
Yeah.
Right.
So now we start playing the game. Guy says to me yesterday in class, he goes, can I ask you a question about entrepreneurship? I said, anything you want. He said, he'll probably listen to this. And he said, I got some business questions. I go, well, what business are you in? He goes, well, I have an LLC. And I said, but what do you do? He goes, well, nothing.
He formed an LLC.
He goes, so what's your advice? I said, do something.
Do something.
That's it. He goes, what am I going to do? I go, I don't fucking know, dude. I don't know what you're good at. And I got about 5 more minutes before I get the fuck out of here because I want to go home. But just go do something.
Right.
He's like, where do I start? I'm like, right now, just do something. You jump and grow your wings on the way down. And, one of those big red flags for a guy who's in business, and I'm this savvy, amazing business person. I'm obviously skilled in some level here. When I hear, we just talked about this before, when I hear 2 things, I know that somebody is just like literally almost blowing smoke out of their ass and just talking out of their fucking behind. Yeah, I'm in business. I have an LLC. When I hear that one, I'm like, oh, Jesus Christ.
Right.
And the other one is, or I'm going to create an LLC. I'm going to create an LLC. Do you even know what an LLC is? Do you even know what it means?
So
or what
why
it
you
stands
would
for?
even create one?
Yeah, right. Why would you? Do you understand what it's meant to do?
Right. Sounds cool.
Yeah, I mean, really, all it's to do is what an LLC essentially is meant to do is to protect your personal assets.
Right.
That's the whole fucking thing, right? And by the way, even the business you're going into might not. An LLC might be an appropriate
worthy,
fit. Yeah,
right.
You might need an LLP or
Right,
or
or
an S corp or a
right.
C corp,
Right.
and people are like, "What?" And I'm like, "Yeah, you don't. Maybe you have a combination LLC, C corp, or a multi-member LLC."
Well, and I think social media has done a lot of that damage, right? The all show of what people are living, almost like what I have, but they're really not on the back end. They don't have it
Well, it's so funny because people are like, "Yeah, I'm an entrepreneur."
because it sounds cool and everyone seems like one on social.
I listen to Gary Vaynerchuk, and it's not an unknown thing. And I mean, it's just the guy's great, but he says a lot. He's like, you can go to people's Instagrams and in their profiles it says entrepreneur.
It's great.
He's
Or
like, but
influencer.
you'll never see somebody put professional basketball player because you know what? You actually have to show results. Here's the ball. What can you
Either
do?
are or you're not, right?
Yeah, anybody. We had a guy who worked here, and I know he doesn't listen to the podcast. Comes in, and his Instagram profile was model, professional baseball player, pro baseball player, and entrepreneur. I'll give everybody a secret in the world. If you are applying for a position at Street Cop Training and your profile anywhere says entrepreneur, I'm not hiring you. That's a blanket rule for me, and I'll tell you why. Here's a few reasons. And this is some business advice for some folks. Here's a few reasons. Number one, if you're an entrepreneur, the fuck you doing working for me?
Right.
That's the first one. Number two, if you're an entrepreneur and you suck at it, you're going to take your sucky skills and bring them to my business. Number 3, if you're an entrepreneur and still are focusing on your own little venture, that means I am second to what your vision is. And I need people here who are like, okay, this is my primary objective. This is my job, because I'm going to reward you back. Here's more money. Here's more money. Here's raises. Anything I can do for you, I appreciate you. I think that a lot of people have to take a reality check. And by the way, I'm also encouraging people to do great things, but not everything is like, oh, I'm going to start an LLC. And the other one is, I'm going to get my real estate license. That's another one where I just want to do a backflip off the fucking bridge to not hear another word. And I got to say, I know about 3 or 4 people who've said that to me or went and got it and actually have success. But I also know about 600 people who have said it to me in the past. So out of those 600, about 1% or less have actually done it and been successful at it. And that's one of the biggest fallacies about real estate. People are like, oh, I watch the shows. It's simple. Folks, if you're not good at business, you're not going to be good in real estate. Will you make 50 grand a year, bullshitting around in real estate full time? You can make 50 grand. Anybody can make 50 grand a year, 60 hours a week in real estate. Like, there's no question about it. But in order to be some of these high achieving realtors, you got to have something, and sometimes it's just better to say, who am I? What am I going to do? We had a guy here. I don't want to say his name, so I don't feel bad. And when he came here, he's like, yeah, I've been thinking about this, and I've been thinking about opening a gym. And I'm like, first of all, there are 2 things that I hear that I run into a panic when I hear about people wanting to get in business. The first one's a gym. The last thing on the fucking world you want to try to open is a gym. It's insane. It's absolutely insane. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu gym, and you're Dante Rivera or Ricardo Almeida, genius, right? You're the fucking guy. Makes a ton of sense. The numbers keep growing. Overhead's pretty low on the whole thing. The variable is you. But a general gym, you're going to try to compete with these big fucking...
now with the competition.
You're out of your mind. And the other one is restaurant. When I hear people say they want to open a restaurant, so he said both of those things to me. And I said, we talked for when we first started working here. 6 weeks later, he's like, I've been thinking I'm probably not good at any of this stuff. And I went, you're saving yourself a lot of pain here. Actually having self-realization about some of your skills, because you're a great person, you're a hard worker, you're a smart person, but there is some gift to understanding how a business works and employing the dynamics. It's really hard. And
trying to figure out what your gift might be. I mean, again, This guy, it might not be a restaurateur or a guy that knows the gym business. It seems like people don't take the time to figure out, like you said a half hour ago, what are you good at? Figure that out first. What do you want to get better at? And then go start that. That might be something I want to hear. Like, I really
figure out what you want to do
this.
and get good at it.
Right.
You know what I mean? I started real estate. I remember having some of my first conversations when I was kind of like faking it a little bit. And I look back at some of those early conversations, and I was very successful as a realtor, right? So the proof's in the pudding. This is where I'm hanging my strengths. I love business. Before Tim Kennedy did the podcast, we talked for a little bit, him and I. I'm like, how much do you love business? He's like, I fucking love it. I'm like, Tim, I see your shit. Like, I can tell that you want to snort business like it's a drug. We love it. Like, we love it. And it's not because I'm growing my bank account, although that's some part of it, right? That's obviously why we're in business. We work as much as we do. To watch this beautiful thing grow and have impact in lives, and like, dude, it's amazing. Like, it's so addicting. It's so fucking addicting. And Tim Kennedy's a stud. Like, dude, Tim is no joke. Tim's a fucking savage business. But the one thing he's got is crazy work ethic. Right. Crazy. So that's another thing you got to think about. What's your work ethic like? If you're going to come into business, what's your work ethic like? You really got to count. I'm coaching somebody right now.
Willing. I mean, you've said it.
Yeah.
What are you willing to give up?
I'm coaching somebody right now that I'm doing pro bono coaching. It's really helping this guy. He's actually a pretty well-known figure. And we're in the stages of exploring, like, the basics and how to make some adjustments in his business. We've adjusted quite a few things and opened up a huge fucking world for him to, we probably brought his revenue up 30 to 35% in the first 3 adjustments in about a week, right? And just different shifts and different thoughts and different minds. But I also, when I look at pouring my energy into somebody to see how it's going to work, I have to ensure that they are willing. I just can't have conversations with everybody's like, I have this idea, like, I make ice cubes that look like Pokemon characters, and like, I do it for my kids, and I think it would be like a smash hit. And I'm like, yeah, I understand, right? I hate to make this sound like Shark Tank, but You know, you got to do this shit. You got to get out there and try it.
But you want to spend your time on the right people is what you're saying. That's all. There's nothing
for me
wrong
now,
with it.
yes.
Right.
For me, you know, usually my litmus test is, here are 3 books. Call me when you're done reading them. I knock down a book a week. On top of listening to podcasts, I knock down a book a week. No bullshit. My hand to God. I'm finishing Burn the Boats by Matt Higgins right now. So I'm knocking down books like I cook breakfast in the morning and books are on. I'm listening to fucking audiobooks as I'm going. I work out to audiobooks. You come to my house, you're like, you ready to fucking get pumped? Got a nice gym in the basement. And dude, I'm putting on like a business podcast.
Right.
And you're just like, dude, what are we doing? Where's Metallica?
You're learning.
Like, bro,
right.
This is my dojo, brother. When I come here, this is where the mind grows. And I'm not trying to sound fancy. I'm actually saying this so people can understand. And maybe it's speaking to those people, but
You'll impact someone.
hey guys, if you're enjoying the Street Cop podcast, do us a favor and give us a review on iTunes or Spotify, wherever you're listening to us. Tell a friend. We don't charge anything for the episodes. We appreciate your support. Check us out on any social platform by putting into the search bar Street Cop Training. Give us a follow. We have a lot of free content coming out every single day that you might not catch here on the podcast, and it's important for you to be able to do your job more professionally, and we also entertain you as well. The guy that I'm helping out now, a lot of people know who he is. He's knocking books out like a madman. I'm giving him recommendations. He's done within 3 days. So I'm really happy that I'm putting my time into him. I want nothing in return. He's the type of guy that deserves it.
Right.
He just needs a little guidance, just like I would have needed guidance 7-8 years ago. Anyway, Doc, let's fucking stop letting old Den rant here.
No, I like hearing it.
We were leaving off at like these relationships. Let's move on to the next thing. So we're checking out chemicals. We're checking out diet. Relationships are important. Mental health. What else are we looking at?
I mean, you know, if it's an athlete or, you know, and again, an athlete doesn't have to be someone who's competing. An athlete could be someone like you and I who are trying to still get at it. Now we talk about structure, mobility, symmetry, some of the goods and bads as far as their physical assessment, because you can catch a ton of things just on that alone.
Interesting. Like, what are some things that you catch that people don't realize?
Asymmetries, meaning, you know, if you split someone in half looking left to right or front to back, you know, either they're not doing rear chain movements. You know, some of my either weight training guys or, you know, pitchers, catchers, people are having specific issues. It's easy to go to a specific area and say, look, you need to work on rear chain movements, or, you know, feet, you know, your 2 columns that start everything. You know, if you're off there, that cadence will work its way up through your, what I call fascial load,
right,
and throw everything off. So that's a common thing is I'll look at leg length discrepancy, if there's a difference in even just your load in your feet alone, and then all the way up.
Yeah, have you caught a lot of people with like short legs and stuff like that?
Oh, yeah, all the time.
How many people do you think have short legs?
Well, there's structural and then there's functional. I think structurally, not a lot. I think there's more functionally shorter sides, meaning you're tighter to one hamstring by a little bit, or a glute, or that fascia all the way up, or an SI joint. And that's easily maintained. And again, there's things that you could do on your own. You don't need to be in my office for an hour to do it. You know, especially people that are already active. I don't believe in you having to spend an hour 3 times a week in my practice.
I used to go see a chiropractor. He was good. You probably know his name, and I'll tell you off. I'm sure you know who he is because you guys are kind of in the same ballpark. And he was different too. He was taking X-rays and measurements and doing all that stuff and trying to see what was going on. You know, and I would go there, and he would try to like adjust me, right? So he's opening up my back. He's like, "Ah, you're not adjusting." I'm like, "I do this every morning. Like I'm cracking my back every morning, sometimes even at night as well." He's like, "Oh, really?" And I'm watching these other people there. Like, he's literally getting on them and, like, popping the backs, you know, just getting on the back on the board. And they're like, oh, ah. And I'm like, dude, you're the fucking laziest motherfuckers. And we're like, and you would hear them come in, like, they're like, I can't move, Doc. I'm fucking dying. I'm like, you're 380 pounds. Yeah. Like, how about start with losing 250?
Right.
And then reassessing your life. You know, you're in here, and they would complain to him, I feel like shit. Well, yeah, you just inhaled 6 bags of Oreos before you showed up.
Or
at
I've
this
tried
day.
everything.
And then I stopped coming. I'm like, hey, you know, Doc, I'm not going to be coming here as much because I don't have the time. It's a 30-minute drive in the morning to come here. Like, I feel good now. I'm glad you assessed, and I'll tell you what some of those things that he found on me were after we get done with this. We've corrected that stuff. I feel great. I was having back pain. And I was having so much back pain that I was actually getting, it was becoming very uncomfortable for a guy who's active. I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with my back?
Right.
And, you know, he's like, yeah, I think some of the stuff you can just do at home. And I'm like, yeah, it's when you said that, it triggered it for me.
Yeah, because there's a lot of things by active. Of course, the ones that you already can tell aren't active and are overweight are going to need a little bit more guidance and help. But I trust my.
How do you get through to people? How do you get through to people when you're looking at them going, you need to lose 50, 60, 70 pounds? How do you get somebody who's never lost weight in their life, and I know people like this, to get them to concede that they're going to have to start losing some weight?
It's not easy, but you hope to find a trigger somewhere.
Kids, family, purpose, life.
Sometimes, and maybe figure out a reason why they might not be doing it. Is it true laziness? Is it a mental issue? Is it they just feel like they're too far gone at this point?
Right. It's interesting.
And obviously it's one of the number one issues in the country is obesity and weight loss, and it's $1 billion industry. These people are buying up. I mean, way back in the day was Chuck Norris selling the whatever gym, that home gym thing, and just people buy things, it collects dust. There's no quick fix. That's the biggest thing. And the patients that stick with me see the results, and hopefully they go talk about it. That's probably a better way too. If you grab a patient that's lost over 100 pounds and has built lean muscle, if you can kind of put them in the room together to talk about it, not look at guys like you and I.
Right.
Because someone might look at you and be like, well, yeah, it's easy for you, even though it might not have been.
Yeah,
They
right.
think it was. If they can hear a story about someone that was similar to them, and they were kind of down and out and over 100 pounds overweight, and they did it, you might have an effect there. That's probably the best way to do it.
That's interesting, man. I really try to have a lot of compassion when I look at somebody. I'm not saying that you have to look like a fucking Adonis everywhere you go, but there is obviously some situations where you're like, what the
What are you doing?
fuck is going on? I mean, come
And
on.
even when even family members that we hear of, then they hear health news, and you just scratch your head like, what are you doing? Like, watch what you eat. Go on a walk. You don't have to work out the way we might, but do something to help your health. It's like they quit. That makes me scratch my head every once in a while.
Yeah, I think we're probably better off to have the conversation with like a psychotherapist rather than you and I.
Yeah.
And I think the only thing we can do is try to see it without prejudice and judgment, and try to really see them as humans that they are. It's not a hard thing. I'm sorry, not an easy thing to do. It's easier said than done. It's like when I hear people talk shit about me or this company and then see them in person, right? I'm just like, oh, I just want to confront this motherfucker, right? But then I try to like really get into this discipline of like, why are they acting that way? Are they really that bad of a person? And
Or are they just jealous?
And they never fucking say shit to my face. I'm encouraging all the people that don't like me to please confront me. And hopefully we can have a conversation like an adult, because I'd like to dig into why you don't like me
Someone
or this
who you
company.
don't even know?
Dude, it's wild. Right? It's wild. We just had a guy go through a police academy here, and he's like, man, some of these instructors came in, they heard that I worked for you guys, and they were just like, they just taking shots because they knew he couldn't say anything. He was a recruit. So they're talking shit about the company, and I'm like, so fucking
So
corny.
petty, man.
Like how, like, come on
Common
the podcast, right? Like I almost feel like, and at the same time, like, who fucking cares?
Right.
Right? We got so many people that love us and the work that we're doing, but in my head, I'm like, come on the podcast. Let's hear what your concerns
But
are.
I mean, that's like Twitter. I mean, people talk about Twitter all the time. I'm not even on it, but that you'll see 100 great comments, one bad one, and you focus on, you'll get 100 great comments about what you guys are doing and how great it is. You just hear one instructor say something, you're like, well, you almost focus. We lean more towards the negative than the positive when it comes to situations like that.
I think we lean towards the negative most of the time in our
Yeah.
lives. My friend Frank Tracy, who's a lieutenant here in New Jersey, he's a fucking great guy, and I'll tell you why he's a great guy. Many years ago, when I started this training company, the agency that I worked for ran a lot of interference and shut the program down, to be quite honest, in some sense. Actually, in complete sense. And I had to send an email out to people who were attending my upcoming classes. Not that there was thousands, but there were some people. And Frank was the only guy that wrote back and said, some of the greatest people in the world have gone through some of the toughest things in their life. He was like, don't let this dissuade what your mission is. I know who you are. He says, write this wonderful email. So I'll always have Frank in my mind as a guy who didn't know me but knew who I was and what I was trying to do. And I think he recognized and saw something in me. He's a great, great guy. So this morning I said to him, it's his birthday today. I said, happy birthday, Frank. I saw it on Facebook. I don't have it like on my calendar, like it's Frank Tracy's birthday. I texted, happy birthday, brother. Hope all is well. He said, I hope for you too. I hope life is treating you good and all that stuff. I said, life is life. There's nothing I can do about that. It's the only way I see life, or the way that I see life is the only way I could get to choose to see life.
Your perception.
So while we all have negative shit going on, boy, how about you stop for a second and thank God for the good shit you have in your life.
I appreciate.
Even your fucking next door neighbor who just says hello to you. Maybe she's older and you get the privilege of shoveling her snow when it snows, right? Just something like that. Like these moments, man, they're worth all the rest of the bullshit.
Yeah,
So
I agree.
it's how you see it. If you
We're-
talk to people
we're
in my
here.
family, yeah.
We're able to get things done. I've been, something like this doesn't go unappreciated on my end. And that's another thing that I probably talk a lot to patients about. Someone's always got it worse. So
Any books or like any kind of articles you recommend to people? I just sent somebody who I have a friend of mine who's going through something very difficult right now, and I'll tell you what I sent him. It's a pretty fucking good excerpt, and it's brought up in a lot of. It's not the first time I've heard it, but it is Good, Bad, Who's to Say. Have you ever heard of this before?
I have heard of it.
Yeah, it's really good. I'll just do it for the podcast. I've heard it on the podcast. It's on books, but it's Good, Bad, Who's to Say. This was an article written by a guy in January. This is July 22nd, 2020. And I guess he's an advocacy for Down syndrome. Anyway, so this is how the story goes. There once was a man who lived on a farm with his son and his horse. One day, the barn door was left open and the horse ran away. When the nearby villagers heard about it, they ran to the farm to tell the farmer how sorry they felt for him. "How will you work your farm without your horse?" they asked. The farmer simply shrugged and said, "Good, bad, who's to say?" A few days later, the farmer's horse returned, and following were two more horses. The villagers were so excited for the farmer's luck, they ran into his farm and told him so. The farmer simply shrugged and said, "Good, bad, who's to say?" The new horses were not broken in, so the farmer's son worked hard to break them in so they could be used on the farm. While doing so, one of the new horses threw him off, and his leg was broken. The villagers again ran to the farm and expressed their deep sadness about the son's broken leg. "Now your son can't help with you on the farm," they said with their heads hung low. The farmer simply shrugged and said, "Good, bad, who's to say?" As the son was healing from his broken leg, a war broke out in the countryside. All the young men were sent to fight. Many died or were seriously injured. However, since the farmer's son had a broken leg, he was not able to go. The villagers again came to the farm to say to the farmer how very lucky he was that his son didn't have to go to the fight in the war. Once again, the farmer shrugged his shoulders and stated, "Good, bad, who's to say?" And it just goes on and on. So while you think these are horrible things, you'd be surprised how they end up being blessings in disguise. I give that gift to everybody when they're going through difficult times. And this person's dealing with some tough stuff, and I said, one of them is a marriage that's falling apart pretty badly, and it's very devastating. And I said, it could be sad, right? But these are the cards you've been dealt. And unfortunately, you don't get to move to another table at this time. You can't call for another deal, or you can't ask for another hand. This is it. This is the hand you got to play. So you could say, "Oh, woe is me," or say, "You know what? Maybe there's another chance for me to find love again and experience that all over with somebody else." Mm-hmm. And when that happens, you might say, "I didn't realize this person needed me, and I didn't know that I needed them."
Right.
And how much more they're going to bring to your life. Very hard thing to face when you're sitting in a circumstance of, oh my God, the trauma, all these things are fucking nuts. But that's a real strength to take a situation that is really detrimental, traumatic, and try to find the good in it.
It is hard, and I one thing a tool I've used, and sometimes, in helping other people get through what they try to get through, is a year from now, how do you want to look at yourself and the way you handled it? Because you're going to be here a year from now. You're going to look back, and you're going to see how you handled yourself right now. Are you going to be proud of yourself? Are you going to wish you had handled it a little bit better, or maybe pulled yourself out a little bit quicker? Like, how are you going to look at yourself and how you handled this situation? And I tend to do that at times because we all sink at times, right? We're human. And then it kind of remind myself of, all right, hold on a second. Like, it could be a month from now, let alone a year from now. How am I going to look at myself the way I handled this situation? Because your future self is going to look back. That, and when you had to ask me about like books or different articles that are out, patients are constantly asking me that question, and I try to lead them in the direction of perception and meaning, and I tend to be a huge fan of 12 Rules for Life and Jordan Peterson. He pulls in psychology.
It's a hard
and
book to listen to though because he's got a very monotone voice.
He does,
but he's excellent. Like Jordan Peterson has the #1 podcast in the education space. I'm just saying, Doc, we're top 100. That's all I'm saying in that same space.
As deserved.
But he's #1, and there's a reason. The guy doesn't miss.
He pulls it all in too. Like it's not just he's a little biased at times, and I'm not going there.
I like it. I mean, I when I hear something, I haven't heard of something yet from Jordan Peterson that I didn't like, but I also don't consume him nonstop.
He makes sense out of it, you know. But again, you look at guys like him, motivational guys like you. I'm sure certain podcasts that you've had, and I've listened to a few of them that are this turned into somewhat motivational and inspiring. Right. Hopefully, I still go back to that patient that's kind of looking at me like, I hear what you're saying, and I love everything you're saying, but I'm not sure I can muster it up. And that, again, goes down to diving into whether or not they have the tools inside. You know, it's not just physical recovery, it's mental recovery. We have those days that you seem to be blessed with something that some people aren't, which is the ability to recover really quick. You know, bounce back really quick so you can get going again tomorrow. Not everyone has that, either chemically or genetically, we'll call it. Some people lose it over time. They don't have the same drive. So part of what success for you became was drive, right? You're willing to work 16 hours a day. You know, I call it 3 work shifts in a day, right? There's 1, 2, or 3 work shifts. Mm-hmm. If you work 2 out of the 3, you're already, you know, doubling someone that's just working 1 8-hour day.
Right. And by the way, then you can start to like hone your skills and become super effective.
And smarter.
You're 20 times as powerful or as effective.
And less time.
Right, dude.
But again, it's you know, I've treated some uber successful people over the years I've you know, for lengthy periods of time, because it's more of the wellness treatment as opposed to just come in when you're acute. And I've watched it kind of diminish, and it does correlate to some of the chemistry that is diminishing as we age.
It's interesting.
So the books are great, the podcasts are great. Trying to implement some of these good habits and good behaviors, which we always hear about. You know, create good habits, create good diet, create good nutrition. But again, if they're not assessed and you really don't have the stuff to get there, it's a harder road.
Right.
So it's one of the other things I always.
I like the simple interventions. Right.
It is.
Drink water only. You know,
simple.
That's a simple one, man. You don't need a coach for somebody to tell you.
No.
Put the fucking soda down. Right. Try to drink black coffee. Right. People think that skim milk is good for you. Actually, whole milk. All 100% fat whole milk is actually better for you.
Listen, I tell my youth athletes, you know, my 14, 15-year-olds that come in and talk about recovery drinks, you know, with all the crap that's out there, there's still nothing better than drinking chocolate milk after a workout.
No, interesting.
There's nothing better.
It's cool.
The protein in obviously the
whole milk, right? We're talking about
milk.
And people got to understand that, like, even if you've tasted whole milk, the what's the more expensive one? The organic.
Yes.
The organic and the regular milk, they taste completely different.
Yeah.
Organic milk's unbelievable.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I mean, for the extra $3 a gallon,
there's a few things
go for the organic.
Do organic.
And I can tell you, I live in a town that's pretty farm. Like, a lot of people have chickens.
So farm to table?
I get eggs delivered every week.
Yeah.
6 dozen come to my house. I got a big family. And sometimes she's not around, I didn't know this because the first year we're doing it, but the eggs lay less eggs in the winter. Did you know that?
No.
Yeah, I said the eggs. The hens lay less eggs in the winter. And so she's like, hey, I can only get like 3 dozen this week. So I'm like, you know, let me grab 3 dozen at the
store. Right.
Shop what a difference, brother. Even the organic ones, there's no comparison between these farm ones, and they're like fucking dinosaur eggs, versus, and it's worth it. If you were near somewhere, you go to a farmer's market and grab these eggs, dude, they're unbelievable. Like, what a significant difference.
Some of the stuff's right in front of people, right? They just choose not to see it.
I think for the extra $3 on a dozen, I think it's worth it, right?
But I think some of the other things, doctor's visits have become so regular, and we're so kind of habitual. Like, I go to the doctor, especially guys, right? We go to the doctor only if you said it. You don't even remember the last time you were at the doctor. I'd like to try to influence people to go to the doctor for a well visit to keep things normalized and make sure nothing gets out of whack, whether it be amino acids.
Smart. I think it's smart.
You know, your micronutrient levels, your hormone levels. Like, why not stay this way? Because it just all of a sudden falls off, and you wake up and you're like, what the hell happened to me? This is what I hear. You know, it's like, I was great, and then I wasn't.
What kind of doctor should they see for some kind of assessment like that? Is it a regular physician? That's tough.
Well, you know what? I would tell patients is dig a little bit, ask a little bit more questions, ask for some of these things. Like, you know, hey doc, can you check my micronutrients? Can you do a hormone panel? Can you check these things on me? Sometimes the regular stuff, and they have their place, and I don't blame them, is to make sure you're not dying, right? It's heart, lung, and then all of your rest of your blood work, liver, kidney, spleen, all that
They're looking
stuff.
for like signs of cancer and stuff like that. Right.
And they do a great job doing it. But what if you're good, and either you want to stay good or you want to be better? Those markers aren't going to help you. And telling you to eat a little bit less red meat because your cholesterol is high is not going to necessarily get you to, that spot. I mean, this new stuff that's coming out, I haven't done enough research. This one guy's spending, $2 million a year, and apparently he's reversing his age. Like there's this cellular testing now on how to test your cellular age. That'll be maybe for our next time together if I've done enough research to tell you if it really stands the test. But everyone's searching for anti-aging, youthfulness. My goal's always been, look, it's quality, right? If we're going to all live to 90, what's your life?
I'm going 103, Doc. I'm telling you right now, I'm going 103.
And you want your life to be between 70 and 103, that of a quality one where you're still getting around, doing what you want to do, as opposed to what do those last 20 years look like?
Yeah. No shit.
And
I don't want to be in a
those
hospital bed.
Or on a walker, or you're losing your brain a little bit.
Yeah, my Uncle Lou's going to be 99 in September. Still driving. Just stopped bowling last year. Didn't want to do it anymore. I said, why'd you quit bowling? He said, everybody else quit. I got no team now. I go, they got too old. They're like 75.
See, and I would
He's
like
99.
to genetically test. He didn't have all the things that we have our hands on now.
Smoked for 77 years.
Right.
Could you fucking imagine, dude?
There's something DNA related to somebody living to 99 and not doing many things right.
His mother lived till 96.
Cook with lard. They deep fried their French fries.
It's wild, right?
Yeah. There's something genetic.
Well, I ask him a lot. I'm like, hey, what do you think?
Yeah.
I think one of the biggest things that I take from all his, because dude, he's crisp. I mean, you talk to him right now, you get a kick out of him. He's funny as shit. Mm-hmm. He is clear as a day. You can't pull one over on him. The guy is sharp as a tack. I saw him driving on Thanksgiving. I was like, this motherfucker's good. Mm-hmm. Like, I thought he was going to be like slow. Dude, he pulls out like he's 17 and just got his license. They're going to be 99 this year.
God bless him.
But I think one overall theme that I heard from him was like, he doesn't really stress. And I got to tell you, I told everybody in this office last week, I'm going to wear a heart monitor and a blood pressure monitor. Like they're looking for something in your body. They make you wear that thing for a week with the thing. I'm going to get one just to prove to everybody where am I at. Bro, I'm telling you, I am fucking baseline. Nothing works me up. Like nothing.
But you operate up there already.
Well, we have a publicist.
Someone might already look at you and think that you're amped up, and you're not.
Oh, dude, I'm calm as shit. Our publicist...
would you take him calm?
Well, I'm calm because you don't see anything works me up.
That's calm. You're calm as you're amped though. Like you're
dude,
like,
I'm telling you, my blood pressure's perfect. My BP's perfect. Like my fucking heart rate's. You would never believe.
What I mean by it is like that's your personality. Is
right.
You're here all the time.
Right.
It doesn't mean you're stressed. You're just here.
Yeah. I'm telling you, I want to wear these things. I want to wear one of these things. I'm going to show everybody what the results are. And you're going to be like, well, what happened there? I'm like, no, I was taking a shit. I was pushing. You know what I mean? That's where the fucking blood pressure went up a little bit. I was working out a little bit here. That's going to make sense. But dude, our publicist was like, you seem awful calm during this fucking turbulent time. And I went, I live in the ringer. My life was the principal's office. I was always in trouble. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I've gotten real comfortable with knowing that, guess what? Everything's going to be okay in the future. In the moment, it's very easy to panic, but it solves nothing.
No.
It solves zero.
Matter of fact, you probably won't handle the situation as good as you would like to have had you not been stressed out and panicked.
You got to breathe. I think
it's almost like what you teach, probably what you teach a lot of your guys in the moment of a struggle or a scuffle or something bad that's going on. The more you keep your head about you, the better result you're going to have.
Yeah.
And that's life.
We have Rob O'Neill speaking at our conference. He's the guy who was on SEAL Team 6 and they went and killed bin Laden. Mm-hmm. And, I've heard podcasts with him before, and he talks about how calm they were to pull off that mission. And they actually believe they weren't coming back. They all went there with the intention of dying. It is, but that's actually like a soldier's creed. Yeah. And they say a lot of times, he who will win the war is the one who burns the boats. If you go to war with the intention of coming back, you're probably not going to do well in the battlefield. But if you go there with the intention of understanding that you're not coming back, you're probably going to be coming back. That's a real theory behind that. And he said, we were calm. And, they asked him, like, how? He's like, this is like our 67th mission. The first one you were a wreck at. Right. But number 67, he's like, I'm telling you, my blood pressure didn't go up a fucking tick. And
do you think that's part of the problem today, too, that things, I mean, not to get corny, but things just seem to come very easy to everyone now. You know, obviously technology is right at our fingertips. I think about my kids compared to what we had to develop patience for and struggle for. Like you said, you were cleaning cars for free and working 80 hours a week. I don't see any kid at 15 now, 16, having to, let alone wanting to work 80 hours a week. And then everything stresses them out. We were stressed from the minute, the minute, like principal's office, like we were constantly kind of pushed to be stressed and handle our stuff outside the house. No one was there. Mm-hmm. You had to handle the playground yourself.
Yeah, there's definitely
now
some responsibility.
They're making play dates.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that we can point to. One thing I can certainly tell, I look at, so my kids are at that age where, I know a lot of parents. I promise you that a lot of this stuff is because of their parents. I'm watching it. I'm watching these helicopter parents. Oh, don't do that. Oh, don't do this. The other day, a kid comes over. This is 2 days ago. So it was a nice weather day here in Jersey. So my number 3 goes, when you come home, can we ride quads? And I went, yeah, of course, man. Like, whatever you want to do. We have a lot of power sports at my house. Bro, if you pop the garage, you're like, holy shit, you guys have like, this is like a fucking display showroom at a power sports center. That's how I always envisioned that house when I bought it. And I told her, I said, one day this garage will look like a power sports center. We're getting there. I still have room for a few more things. So this, the one kid gets on, I give him a 50. He's 7. It's a pretty significant age. They're able to ride power sports at 7. Yeah. I had my number 3.
He's a little quad.
It's a 50, right? This thing's regulated. It's about 16 miles an hour tops.
Yeah.
Your power wheel does 7 miles an hour, right?
If he tips over, he's literally going to fall off before it tips over.
Well, so the mother says to me, she's like, you got this kid. This kid's never been on a quad before. I go, the dynamics are so simple, though. She goes, but you got to understand something. These kids aren't like our kids. And I said, what do you mean? She goes, you've had these kids on these fucking machines since they're 2.
Yeah, mine too.
And I'm 7. Like the other kid, this one's kids came over and was riding.
They probably loved being at your house.
Nobody wants to leave, my friend. And by the way, we also have like no rules. So kids are always like, you're telling me I can jump off the stairs? I'm like, I would suggest doing a backflip and giving it a shot. Right. Let me get some pillows. And they're like, what pillows? I'm like, the ones on the couch. We're just on a fucking ground right here. Bro, I'm telling you, that's how we live our lives.
How they test their limits.
It made me think. And then, of course, he flipped it into the bushes. I have like the giant abrevieties that separate the houses, right? So he came in. I didn't even see him do it. I just heard it. And I was like, what the fuck? I was like, what happened? He's like, oh, my foot got stuck. I was like, the fucking 50 was in the, like, you couldn't see it anymore. It was in the tree. It was just laying there.
Yeah.
So, she said, she's like, our kids are different. I thought to myself, there's a reason why our kids are different. Parenting. Because it's us.
Yep.
And there's no question about it. And I'm not sitting here criticizing other people's parenting and patting myself on the back. What I'm saying to the parents listening to this is you're going to have significant impact in how these kids grow up, how they behave as adults, because you motherfuckers don't let them do anything. I mean, you got people come to my house. I have a hill in my backyard. I've had people in the back like, don't go down that hill. And I'm like, hey, we play on the hill. We play football on the hill.
Right.
And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, what's the worst thing that's going to happen to that kid? I've seen parents come to like the bouncy birthday parties and yell at their kids to not bounce. And I've literally said to them, and I get scolded by their mother. I say, hey, you realize what they're supposed to do here is run around, bounce, and be fucking insane.
Right.
And all you're telling them to do because of your anxiety is to calm down. What you're doing to these kids is telling them, don't be dangerous. I'm scared. My kids are like, bro, I don't get like, let's go. That's all you hear in my house. Like, let's go. Mm-hmm. Even when I roll the side by side, my oldest was with me. He's a nervous kid. Dude, he escaped that fucking side by side in about 4 seconds. Like he'd been practicing his whole life. It was amazing. So now I'm like,
he's had a ride with you.
Well, right, exactly. So I'm pinned in this thing, and bro, I'm in pain. But I'm like, so I jump out. He's like, oh, are you okay? You good? You good, Dad? I'm like, yeah, I'm fucking good. Relax, brother.
Lift it off my arm.
Well, no, I got up and I lifted it up. So it's the kids' one. It's a 200 Polaris Razor. But after driving that, I'm getting an adult one now. I'm going to get like a fucking badass, like 4-seater
Grizzly,
I'm talking like, I'm looking at some fancy shit, like Turbo Razor R's. Like these things are wild. I have to have it. Anyway, because I'm a giant child. So when I got out, I flipped the thing over. And I was like, fuck it, dude, what am I going to do? I'm in this woods with this kid. I got to flip this thing over. Nobody's coming to rescue me. So I'm like, before this pain really sets in, I'm like, grab it. I fucking squat it up. He's like, holy shit, Dad. I'm like, yeah, get back in. So he's like, can you drive it? I'm like, dude, I'm really nursing my arm. I'm like, we're good. And dude, I didn't get out and like putt through the woods. I'm like, you ready to rock? And I fucking pounded it. And we just started peeling out of the fucking woods, cooking it again. And the reason I did that, I didn't want him to see or be scared or create a fear.
Right.
Of what would happen if he goes fast in that thing. I want you to go fast in this.
Well, and you also showed a little grit being hurt rather than, and you were hurt. You got up and you moved, and he's going to remember that. And at some point, he's going to go down and get up and move.
That's, dude, I've been telling people my whole life, don't pick him up, don't touch him. He fell. I don't give a fuck. He'll figure it the fuck out.
Right. He's all right.
He'll figure it out. All of them, don't touch him. Oh, you don't. If you need your dad, I'm here. If something really bad happens, I promise you emotionally.
But that's creating grit.
Yeah, but I'm telling you, you do not get to just bitch and complain. I'll tell my kids, I have a couple of them are crybabies. I'm like, why are you such a bitch? I call them baby bitches. I'm like, you guys are a bunch of baby bitches in this house. I'm like, stop. And I'm telling 6-year-olds, I'm like, stop being such a fucking bitch. I do this all day long, right? And cursing's permitted in my house. My kids are the most well-behaved. They would never curse in front of you.
Isn't it funny?
Oh, dude, and they curse not when their mother's around because they'll get fucking destroyed. But with me, as soon as she walks out, goes to the store, they're like, where's the fucking PlayStation remote? I'm like, guys, that's hysterical. Yeah. Right? But I always tell them, like, stop being a bitch. They don't want to go BJJ, they're going. I'm literally dragging kids out, holding them by their fucking ankles, and throwing them into the truck. And she'll be like, they don't want to go. I'm like, I don't give a fuck what they want. They're going. That's it. I don't want to go today.
We'll appreciate it later.
So one of the fathers did. Now, the cool thing is, I will tell you this. I have never seen a group of people who are more like me than the people who bring their kids to BJJ. So when you sit in a crowd of 8, 10, 12 parents who are watching their kids practice Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, they are literally the people who completely agree with the things that I'm saying because, dude, that's not an easy thing to do for these kids.
And 90% of them don't want to go, so they're the parents that are saying you're going.
Dude, I'm telling you, and every single one of them, you can tell, like, they'll get yelled at by the instructor, and he's funny. He was on a podcast, Dante Rivera, and he'll be like, I'm going to fucking take all of you and throw you into traffic on Route 9 if you don't shut up. And my kids love him. And I'm like, precisely. That's exactly what I want them to hear. Dude, I tell a story. One time this little girl gets hurt, and he's like literally like, hit her on the face, like, Jessica, you're fine. Stop crying. Get back down in the guard. And she's like crying. He's like, stop crying. It's not worth it to cry over this. Just shut up. Stop crying. He lays back down. And then he made her do the move again. And she gets up and she's like happy and like laughing through her tears. And, there's like 12 of us looking at each other. I'm like, here's exactly why we're here. Mm-hmm. Right? And then you got like a grandmother came like 2 weeks ago. And she's like, oh my God, this is terrible. And I said to her, you want them to do it here in the controlled environment, or do you want a kid to do that to them in the 5th grade and they can't do nothing
they can't
back?
Handle themselves, right?
What do you want these fucking kids to do? You can't baby these motherfuckers. You're gonna end up with these soft Marys. I'm sorry, it just is what it is.
I agree.
And I watch it, dude. I watch these parents who come to our house. They're going on the zip line. I'm like, yeah, they're gonna be fine. It's got a seat. They're gonna sit on it, right? I'm at a pool party over the summer. Kids are running around the pool. The one mother's in the pool, no running. And I'm like, hey, Jen, what's the worst that's going to happen? They're going to get scraped knee,
right?
Bruised head a little
bit. What do we do?
Bro, like, let them fucking run. Who cares?
They disappear the minute the sun came up.
What is this, like, the community pool where they got a lifeguard? These kids are fucking off. You got your drunk husbands on a dirt bike, right? Like, right now racing around. Like, what? Everybody's got to calm down with this fucking hovering over these kids, these helicopter parents. Dude, I watch it, and I don't know why it's so much worse now than it's ever been.
I don't know. I've been talking about that a lot lately.
They actually say, there's a lot of theories, Jordan Peterson has a lot of theories on this, is because younger parents are more daring with their kids. People aren't having kids till 40 now, right? So these 40-year-old, 35-year-old moms and dads are overly cautious.
Right.
And what they say is and
they're not having a lot of kids either.
No, 1, 2.
Right.
But a lot of these younger, like my wife was very young when she had kids. She was 23 at her first baby. So, she's very daring with them. She's a great mom. So we encourage things. We had our kids going up, people come to our house sometimes when the kids were real little. And I had a 9-month-old going up and down the basement stairs, 12 stairs down to a hard concrete floor. And people were like, oh, the door. And I'm like, she's good. They're like, she's not even a year. She doesn't even walk yet. I'm like, she can get down the stairs.
She figured it out.
We let them go. My kids have never fall down the stairs as infants going up and down it. And you got people come over and like will not even let their kids near the stairs, and they're fucking 2.
It's too much.
Could you imagine, dude?
Yeah, no. It's
You gotta let it go. You gotta concede that they're gonna get hurt. They're gonna survive. I came home the other day when they were riding quads. My oldest fell off a skateboard, busted his face up, big swollen eye. And I was like, what happened to you? He's like, I fell off the skateboard. I go, that's going to look fucking awesome. He's like, it really hurts. I'm like, stop being a bitch, dude. You're okay, right? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, stop being a girl. It's going to look cool as shit
Throw
tomorrow.
some frozen peas on it.
He had a fucking like, dude, anyway. Fuck, dude. What haven't we talked? We could do this 1,000 times
we really
over.
could. We got a lot.
Where can people find you?
So we're in Madison, New Jersey. We're north central, I say North Jersey. But again, one of the things that Frank and I spoke about before I'd even come on was it wasn't necessarily me getting on here and being able to promote. It was more to be able to educate.
Yeah, but people are going to want to know, where can I find this guy?
Yeah,
I need the help. I want the help.
I definitely
right?
appreciate that. But you have such a large audience in such a large area that the biggest thing is to make sure that they do their due diligence and they ask the questions from some of the topics that we talked about. And, they can get more out of their provider by doing that. That's the biggest thing. They're not everyone.
You can dig around too, right? You go on Google, look for like, Google some key phrases like wellness check.
Right.
More than the regular physician. You'll find
not the whole anti-aging, functional medicine. Everyone's kind of claiming these things. The problem with the anti-aging websites are they'll send you whatever you want to your house, right? I don't really love that deal. Whether it be supplementation or anything else that you're getting. There's no real checkup. And then the functional medicine end of it, there's so many different doctors that claim functional medicine, whether it's gut function, whether it's keto, whether it's go green. So those key phrases have been so overused now, this anti-aging thing, that I feel like that's actually lost its luster. We all want to stay youthful. We all want to feel good. We all want to try to look better and stay, we'll call it strong or functional. So the key components are just digging a little bit in that visit to ask for different markers that you might be missing that aren't going to be looked for, like your micronutrient, your hormone panel. Those things make a difference. Mm-hmm. And the high norms and the low norms also make a difference, right? Yeah. So it's not just the fact that, like, if you're right, you're kind of a high norm for testosterone, we'll call it. I mean, for cholesterol, not a big deal. If you were a low norm for cholesterol, not a big deal. Some hormones and some micronutrients, it is a big deal if you're a low normal or a high normal. And that's what, patients, there's so much, information out there. The problem is you don't know where you're getting it from. But if you dig a little bit and you know what the questions that you would like to ask, you'll get the answers.
Interesting.
And you'll hold your physicians more accountable.
Well, if somebody's from New Jersey, New York area, and they're a police officer, first responder, whatever it may be, or somebody's looking for an overall wellness check and they want to come see you, what's the website?
Madison Medical, NewJersey.com.
You guys on Instagram and all that shit too?
No.
Come on, man. You got to step your fucking IG game up.
I know. My market's always been word of mouth, lecturing, going to PBA lectures and, ATC athletic trainers, getting in front of parents, youth athletes, and kind of just doing the one-on-ones with the crowd themselves and kind of earning their trust. But I do have to step my technical game up. My website's pretty good.
How about just a few more pieces of advice before people leave? They're listening saying, well, give us a few things, Doc, if we can't see that we should intervene in our lives now or introduce into our lives now to make ourselves feel better and have more wellness. What are some of those? Just a couple things. And you can be broad. They can be very broad. Diet, exercise. But for me, I like things a little more specific.
Yeah, I think waking up early always makes a difference.
Oh, yeah.
I'm a huge fan of waking up a little bit early and getting organized, maybe reading something or listening to an audiobook. If you're not hitting the gym, hit the gym. You don't have to go heavy, but you should be lifting weights. There's a big difference between cardio and lifting weights. You can incorporate everything else into it. Mobility is a huge factor in injury prevention. You said it yourself, in the morning you wake up, you're trying to get some of those clicks and clanks out of your system before you get moving. A lot of people don't know how to do it or don't do it.
Stretching is what you're saying is a good idea.
Stretching, joint motion. If you could be assessed by someone who knows what the heck they're doing to kind of see what your asymmetries are before it catches up to you, great. And then again, doing a little bit of a deeper dive into your chemistry, into your micronutrients, your hormone panel. There's so many different ways to tweak your diet to increase these things, and supplementations out there. It's amazing.
Yeah.
We just don't know it.
Just start with something, folks. Start with something. Just do one thing now. It's really easy to do. Put the soda down, pick the water 90% of the time, right? And a
lot of these things really, really do affect your mental chemistry.
That's wild, man.
I can't tell you.
You'll feel like shit.
And you won't even know it. You don't realize I have. It's just one of those days. What'd you eat yesterday? Did you have a lot of sugar or a lot of carbs? That will affect anxiety. That will affect depression. Lightly. You don't have to be anxious or depressed, but maybe you're just off. There's so many real cool ways to tweak those things, and then getting to the gym and letting out that energy and the serotonin. And
I will actually postpone being here on time to ensure that I have a workout before I leave, because of my performance level will be so much better by ensuring that I get that 45-minute workout in the morning. Yeah. No bullshit. One other thing that I want to give to people that I have been giving to a lot of my friends who are experiencing difficulties in life and may find themselves down and blue is to... there's a lot of great resources on YouTube. And if you put in things like tough times, grit, resiliency, and you just start doing some searching and watch some of those videos, man, they really speak to you. They speak to me, right? Mm-hmm. Interestingly enough, I was going through a very difficult time in my life, and I was on 537 in the town that I work in. It's one of the county roads. That I live in. And I put in what to do during difficult times, and Jason Redman, who is a Navy SEAL, was shot, I think, 11 times in Afghanistan, came up. And I watched his TED Talks video. So I told Frankie, because it really made a big difference for me. I really, really impacted me. It was very good. I said, find this guy, Jason Redman. Let's DM. Let's get him on the podcast. Finally got him on the podcast. He responded like a month later. Now I'm friends with him. He's doing our conference in 2 months. So it's just so interesting where one little gesture of trying to find something leads to a whole different part of your life. So it's these, man, I was in a tough time. But even that tough time led me to be friends with Jay Redman.
Gotcha, yeah.
And we're friends. Like, he'll hit me up. He's like, yo, you got a few minutes? Can I ask you a few questions? I'm like, yeah, dude, what do you got? I got to ask you about this. What are you guys doing for that? And I'm like, dude, anything I can do for you. Send me your shit over. I'd love to help you. So again, it's back to that excerpt of, what I said earlier about the farmer and the kid who was...
perception.
All that shit. So you'd be surprised what comes out of even some of these dark times and some of the great things that come out of it. So outside of that, it's the last thing I wanted to say. I appreciate you being here, Doc. We'll do it again. This is great.
Appreciate you having me. Thank you.
Guys, thank you for your continued support. We're getting a lot of great feedback about the podcast here, and can't wait to see everybody at the conference coming up. We're 60 days away from it as of today. And you'll get to spend a fuck ton of time with me and everybody else here at the Street Cop Training family and all the keynote speakers. It's going to be a really good time, so we'll see you guys there. Guys, if you're in an area where you're trying to get to our classes, but we're not close to you, fret not. We actually have on-demand training at streetcop.com. You can take that course online right now, and then you could attend that training in the future at no additional cost. You can redeem your voucher, so you get 2 for the price of 1. We don't want to deny you the ability to take this training now, especially knowing that it can keep you safe, at a very minimum, putting bad guys in jail where they belong, and at the maximum, going home to your family. Check out streetcop.com for that offer.